All right, week 2 of the campaign. Let's bring in Phil Coorey, who's seen a few of these things play out before. He's also the political editor at the Australian Financial Review.
Tom?
We're a week in. There's a sense that Anthony Albanese has lost skin early in the game. Obviously he hasn't lost the election, but is there a sense maybe he's almost lost that mood advantage he had? The mood of sort of like, this bloke Morrison's no good, has switched to like, well, is Anthony Albanese any better?
I think that's become apparent. I think that was always the case, and it was masked by, Liberal Party infighting and ill discipline before the election was called, and elements of COVID and stuff. But I think it's just sort of we've now got clarity over the race, and I think it was always going to be like this. Tom, we had a poll today in the Herald and the Age which showed Labor's primary vote had gone quite sharply backwards. Albanese's personal ratings had declined. And ostensibly both parties are sort of around mid-30s in terms of their primary vote, which for both is not enough to win an election on. So the loss from Labor hasn't gone to the Liberals, it's been parked. And the Financial Review, we did some polling, some focus group research rather last week, which showed the same thing in qualitative terms. They're not very fond of Scott Morrison, but they're underwhelmed by Anthony Albanese as well. So you've got, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, and the news poll is picking up the same sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, the figure that jumped out to me, aside from a big loss, 4% off a primary,
it's a big,
not to cast aspersions, but it's the sort of thing you go, well, let's watch the next one. That's bouncing around a lot. But uncommitted, so not undecided, but uncommitted, so soft. 21 to 27. After a week of the campaign. So rather than solidifying view, they're sort of coming off Labor to a degree and going, right, show me what you got.
Yeah. And I think the campaign it's almost like the last couple of years was irrelevant in terms of, Rebecca Wilson, the late sports journalist, used to say of basketball, you should just call it 100 points all and play the last minute. Yeah. And this feels like that now. It's sort of like it's whatever's happened over the last 2 years doesn't really seem to come into it now. It's just this sprint over the last few weeks from an even point.
Especially because COVID was all defining, but now whatever future role it plays in our lives, people don't really want to think of it as what restrictions or what will happen with a variant. So they don't even want to contemplate what sides will do with another variant. They want to say non-COVID things, and COVID dominated that poll and got it to 55-45. So the reset makes even more sense this time.
It does, and it has played a role in so far as defined the Prime Minister and the thing people don't like about him.
And that doesn't disappear.
No, but I think it's exposed the sort of shallowness of Labor's strategy, which relied too much on just the character of the Prime Minister. And I've made this point. I just don't think they've done the work. They didn't do the work to put it beyond doubt. So Prime Minister, you don't like him, that's one thing, but you've got to offer something as well, and that's the missing element. That's where they've got to go in the last 4 weeks.
So if you do things again with perhaps what you're saying should have happened, but Labor might say benefit of hindsight, you colour in a bit more on the Labor side from post-Christmas, and you say here's what to vote for, so that people don't sort of have to just totally reset things at the start of elections. They already know what they're voting for.
Well, John Howard used to always tell the Liberal leaders when he was Prime Minister, and he got frustrated with the state Liberal leaders who always left everything to the campaign and said, you can't fatten the pig on market day. And there was a reason, nearly all the states had gone sort of, Labor by the time he was out of office. So it's not, nothing's insurmountable, and I think there's still some twists and turns to go in this campaign, but some of us have been saying this for quite some time. This is not some new revelation. That there's been a bit of a thinness about Labor's approach, and I think it's been exposed. And and they're scrambling. And the Prime Minister's obviously found his line and length. He's comfortable at his press conferences. So it's a pretty even contest from now. I don't think either of them's the underdog anymore. I think it could be anyone's race. It could well be a hung parliament.
It feels that way. We might talk next week around what might start. And there's already the Lions starting on, we couldn't possibly form hung parliament even though they'll both try.
Well, no one's going to try not to. No one's going to say not to. And I think that makes it interesting with independents. I think it's time to really start pushing them as to which side they're going to jump. It's only 5 weeks away. So.
Phil Coorey, thank you.
See you, mate.